Good morning. Happy second week of being remote again. I'm sure you're as thrilled about it as I am. So I figured the best thing I could possibly do to make sure that you are meeting the expectations for creating a line chart was to make this super awesome video. It's going to go through exactly how your graph should look for the heating and cooling data for naphthalene. And then I'm going to show you where it should go in assignment hashtag 011A, and what to do from there. I'm going to share with you a rubric that you're then going to use to make sure it's as beautiful and perfect as you wanted it to be. And you're going to make sure that you're turning in the absolute best quality work you possibly could. And yeah, from there, we're going to talk about those awesome analysis questions. So without further ado, let's just talk about graphing. Now, I shared with you the line chart guidelines, which was legit a step-to-step version of everything you needed to do. And it says step one, select all the data, including the section headings in the data table. So just a quick blurb, this first piece right here is a title. You do not want to select that. Right below that are your section headings. This is what was measured in with what unit. So we're looking at time in minutes and highlighting over to temperature in degrees Celsius and highlighting all the way down until it stops. Boop. Then you could have gone to your insert button and selected chart, or usually up in this top part here, there's this lovely little icon, which is the exact same thing. So you can either go to insert or go to this icon and click on it. Boom. And eventually your chart editor pops up. Winning. While under setup, you wanted to make sure to scroll down and make sure these two boxes are checked. Okay, in this particular instance, it only changed what we were looking at up here for the x-axis. It makes it so they are labeled with section heading and unit, which takes that responsibility off you under the customize section. So here we go. Once you go over to customize, we want to make sure chart style. Nope, we want to make sure we have great titles. So we're going to start with the main chart title. This is temperature versus time. Yeah, that's great, but it's wicked generic. And so I would much rather think about a better title. Somebody could look at this graph and know exactly what was being depicted here. And so if I went all the way back up to the very top, the title of my actual data table, then that's kind of a really great way to go. So I scroll down to find my chart again. If for some reason I lose my chart editor, if I click here, these three little stop lights in the top right, we click on those and go right back to edit chart. Hey, there it is. Customize. I'm going to go ahead and change my chart title. I don't like that. It's too indescriptive. So this was the heating and cooling of naphthalene, naphthalene. And so there it is. That's a much better title. It's very descriptive. It tells the reader exactly what they're looking at. And then, of course, a subtitle, because I like to make sure y'all are doing your own work. So you're going to go ahead and put in your name, your actual name. Please don't type your name. Put your name there. And so if for some reason on our x-axis it didn't say time in parentheses, did not have the unit we used to measure it, then you could go here and type that in. Same thing if you needed to change the vertical axis, your y-axis, y to the sky up here, if it didn't already come up as temperature, degrees Celsius, you could type that in there, but it did, so a little bit less work. Now, the very next thing is if you just go straight down there, list of customizations here, series is next, and you can see that we have a line, and that's fantastic, but I like to see the data points that are meant to be there. So I'm just going to go ahead, and I don't like to go much larger than the 7x because, as you could see, if you go really big, it just blurs the line out. Even the 10x, because these are, very close together every half a second points, it makes it a little bit too tight there. So I like the 7x, right? 7x, you can see all the data points that were there. You could estimate specifically a line, makes it good. And if you're not a fan of the circle, there's triangles, there's some diamonds, there's stars, woo, whatever it is you like, I don't care. Now, when it comes to line thickness, we don't want to change the line because, again, it blurs things out. So they recommend a default of 2px, and I just stay with that. We don't have to worry about any of this for a line graph. However, if this were a scatter plot, a trend line would be really helpful here. Okay. Oh, and I forgot to mention, if you're not a fan of the blue, by all means, switch up your line color. Um, that wouldn't matter if we were going to print these out, but since it's all electronic, color is everything. All right, so closing up series, I think we're really good there. Typically, if you only have one set of data, you wouldn't have a legend. Um, and so, there's really not much we could do here. It does auto position your legends. I always like to make sure a legend goes on the top. Like, there we go. There's a legend. If I put that on the top, it's just telling me that it's representing the temperature, which you can leave if you want. I don't find it to be necessary to have here because we only have one set of data being plotted. If there was more than one set of data, you would definitely want a legend, and definitely on the top, because as you can see, if you put it on the bottom, it gets all jarred up with our x-axis. If you put it to the left, it gets all squished over to the right. And if you put it to the right, it squishes everything over to the left. And if we are to put that inside the graph, that can really get tangled up and mess up the data. So in reality, the best place for it is at the top. It's out of the way, it doesn't congest everything, it's looking mighty nice. Okay, now as you go down, if for some reason on that horizontal axis your data did not fit in all the way to the left or all the way to the right, you could adjust that by putting in minimum and maximum values. Okay, our horizontal axis does not cut off any of our data, but our vertical axis does. You can see this data point right up here. You can't quite see it. So what I would do is under vertical, I would go ahead and plug in a minimum and maximum value, my minimum being 0, and then my maximum, let's see, it's 100. So what if I went to 110? What does that look like? And play with it, adjust it, mess with it. Maybe you don't like that. Maybe you like different numbers. So you go 125. Maybe that's easier for you. It doesn't matter as long as whatever you put in between these major axes helps you define without making it too visually unpleasing. Um, and so I would probably go with 125 because now those major axes are separated nice. And you could think about how could I put minor axes in there to more define, excuse me, and I don't like that axis line. It helps you to more define um, the data there. All right, so my vertical axis is done. Last but not least, grid lines and ticks. Now, we do not want to adjust any major anything. We leave that to the default. So our major spacing type, we don't even touch. We're thinking about our minor spacing. That's the little lines in between our defined numbers along our axes. And so if I'm in the vertical axis right up here, then I want to make sure, how am I going to count from 0 to 25? 0 always already exists, so I need a line for, let's go 5, I need a line for 10, I need a line for 15, I need a line for 20. So that is 4 minor lines. Boom. See how nice and descript that makes those? And I'm not going to change the default setting of color because I don't want the grid lines to overpower the data and the line on the graph. So if you make them too dark, it can really take away from what you're looking at. It makes it visually unpleasing. And now once my vertical axis is taken care of, I'm going through and putting that onto the horizontal axis, and I am going to go ahead and think about the same thing. My horizontal axis goes from 0 to 5, so it's every 5 minutes. How am I going to define those lines without making it too busy? So I count. 0 is already there. I need a 1, a 2, a 3, and a 4. So again, that just happens to be 4 minor grid lines for that horizontal axis. And now you can see a really nice grid line path. If I was looking at, say, this data plot right there, that one, I knew it would come in between here, which is right at 13 and a half. And I should be able to follow that over to figure out roughly what degree setting that is. And so, folks, this right here is a gorgeous, well done, easy to read, descriptive graph of your heating and cooling of naphthalene. And at this point, what you would want to do is make sure that you had your assignment hashtag 011A open. And what you're going to do is really simply just click right onto this graph here and go Control C to copy it. Click over to the other assignment, and right here where it says copy and paste your line chart here, you're going to go right below there and go Control V, and this should come up. Okay, and what you're going to want to do where it says paste chart, always keep it linked to your spreadsheet. Okay, because if you ever realize there was a mistake, you could then go back to the spreadsheet, change it, come back here and fix it. For instance, let's say as I'm looking for this, I go, oh man, I didn't put my name in there. I'm going to come over here, get right back into my edit chart function, go right to where, I want this to say subtitle and be like, all right, I didn't put my name in, so, here we go. Hey, all right, I got it, right? It says Miss Sargent here. So now, without even having to copy and paste and everything, I go here, hey, look, the update button, and you go, boom, updated, all taken care of. Look at my gorgeous graph. Isn't that sweet? Fantabulous. Okay, well, that's my little spiel on how to figure out to make sure you have the absolute best graph you could possibly have in there. Why don't you go ahead and make sure your chart is looking mighty fine and get that pasted into this hashtag 011A activity and use the rubric that I'm going to post in the classroom to grade yourself. You're going to highlight the box you believe your graph meets. And if it doesn't meet proficiency, instead of just highlighting that box on the rubric, you should probably fix your graph because that's what I'm going to be grading. Alrighty, well, as much as I'd like to continue to hang out and listen to the sound of my own voice, I'm going to let you go and make sure your work is done. Good day.